Education.
Thank you very much. Can I begin by wishing you and the whole House a Happy New Year, Mr. Speaker? And with permission, I'd like to make a statement regarding the return of all educational settings for children, students and staff. There have been a number of adjustments to the start of this term, and I'm grateful for the chance to update the House on what this means in more detail. Although we are beginning the transition from pandemic to endemic, COVID has undoubtedly been the greatest threat to our way of life since the Second World War. But just as we did then, we are going to get on with the job, Madam Deputy Speaker. I know that our teaching communities have been adversely affected by the Omicron variant, which is why I issued our recent call to arms, urging any teachers who have stepped away from the profession or who have retired to return, even if it's just for a few hours a week, so that we can keep children learning. And I am very glad to say that we have already seen the first volunteers heading back to our classrooms, including, Madam Deputy Speaker, at least two of our own. The Honourable Member for Eastbourne and the Honourable Member for Stoke-on-Trent North, as well as staff from my own department who have already answered that call. They do this House great credit, and I'm sure that I speak for the whole House when I say we thank them and wish them well. I will have a better idea on the exact number of how many former teachers have come forward to lend their support at the end of this week. I know that even so, schools will be suffering some degree of staff absences. At the end of last year, the figure was about 8% of staff off, and that's probably likely to rise with increasing cases in school and, of course, young people as we return to school. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, let me say this. I have absolute faith in our teaching communities. Teachers, classroom assistants, nursery providers, heads and lecturers in all our education settings have worked miracles throughout this pandemic and continue to do so. To ease some of the burden, there will also be a short temporary break from Ofsted inspections during the first week of term as schools undertake on-site pupil testing. Ofsted will also encourage settings that have been hit badly by COVID-related staff absences to ask for a deferral in planned inspections. We will work with supply agencies to make sure schools can continue to function and that we prioritise children's learning in face-to-face and, of course, in the face of staff absences. Last November, we reopened the COVID Workforce Fund, and we are extending this to the February half-term to support schools that are facing the greatest staffing and funding pressures. But I'd just like to, right now, be crystal clear about one thing, Madam Deputy Speaker, and that is we must do everything in our power to keep all education and childcare settings open and teaching in person. Face-to-face education is the best way for children and young people to learn and develop. You don't have to be the Education Secretary, Madam Deputy Speaker, to know this. Teachers know it, parents know it, and kids know it is better than any one of us. I would now like to outline the additional measures we have put in place to make it possible and at the same time limit the spread of infection. Madam Deputy Speaker, on the 26th of November, every single nursery, school, college and university were invited to order supplies of lateral flow tests and will have received their allocation of the 31 million tests in advance of their pupils, students and staff returning through a dedicated supply channel. Because of this, all our education and childcare settings were already well prepared for the start of this term. Because we know that one of the most effective weapons in our COVID arsenal is a robust testing programme, all secondary schools were asked to provide one on-site test for pupils at the start of term, and they're getting on with that job right now, and I thank them for it. All college and university students and all staff have been asked to self-test at home before they return to the classroom. Secondary, college and university students and education staff and childcare staff should then continue to test themselves at least twice a week. If any school or college runs out of testing kits, they can order more through the usual online ordering channel or call 119 to further receive advice and support for their supply. We continue to work closely with the UKHSA to maintain supplies for all our education settings. We continue to welcome international students to the United Kingdom, and universities stand ready to support any students who are required to quarantine on arrival. Overseas students should not worry because visa concessions remain in place for international students to allow them to study remotely until April 6th of this year. The best ways people can safeguard themselves and their families is by getting jabbed. The British public have responded magnificently, Madam Deputy Speaker, with around 60% having received all 3 jabs. We want to make sure that everyone gets vaccinated as soon as possible, which is why I have been urging parents to get the second doses for 12-15-year-olds that are now on offer. They can make appointments for both doses on the NHS booking service, and any children who are at risk in the 5 to 11 age group can also get a jab by the middle of this month. There will also be a vaccination service in schools for those children who are eligible for jabs beginning on Monday. We have already delivered more than 350,000 carbon dioxide monitors, which settings have found extremely helpful in managing ventilation. Teachers have told us that they are finding, my apologies, Madam Speaker, the monitors helpful to manage ventilation, and in the majority of settings, existing ventilation measures are perfectly adequate for the job. For the very few cases where maintaining good ventilation is more challenging, we are sending out up to 8,000 air cleaning units from next week, alongside other protective measures such as testing, vaccinations and better hygiene. These will help to manage transmission and keep settings open. I'd like now to turn to the subject of face coverings. To keep as many people as possible learning in school and college and higher education, we have said that face coverings should be worn in classrooms and teaching spaces for pupils and students in Year 7 or above. We would not normally expect teachers to wear face coverings in classrooms if they are mainly at the front of the class delivering a lesson. Madam Deputy Speaker, I know this is something that people feel very strongly about, and some people have said that we are wrong to do it. As I've always, and I'm going to do this again now, follow the data. The UKSHA have said this will help reduce transmission at a time when rates of infection are so high with the Omicron variant. My department has also looked at some observational data from a sample of 123 schools where face coverings had been in use in the autumn term, and found that there was a greater reduction in COVID absence compared to those where students didn't wear face coverings. Obviously, it's not ideal. It's distracting for children at a time when they should be concentrating or listening to their teachers. I also know that it isn't great for any child's well-being, and I have commissioned staff from my department to conduct further research to better understand the negative impacts of face coverings on education, along with publishing the initial findings on this today. But I have to strike a balance, Madam Deputy Speaker, between the vital need to keep schools open and reducing the spread of infection. As the Honourable Member for Stoke-on-Trent North so rightly pointed out in his article for The Times, face masks, and I quote, are a price worth paying to keep kids where they belong, in the classroom. So for the shortest possible time, and not a day more, that's what we will recommend. It is the sensible thing, the pragmatic thing, and a proportionate thing to do. I'll be reviewing this, Madam Deputy Speaker, on the 26th of January, when I hope That data will allow us to ditch masks in class. Our young people have put up with an awful lot over the past 2 years. By doing everything that has been asked of them, they will have sacrificed many of the things that all of us here took for granted when we were growing up. I am determined that whatever precautions we have to take now, we take them for the shortest possible time so that children can get back to life, the life they should be leading and the one that they deserve. We all owe it to this generation to give them the world-class education they deserve. For this reason, Madam Deputy Speaker, I commend this statement to the House. Yeah.